Rossetti! How could you? Did somebody reset their game so much you had to delete Animal Crossing?
Isabel, I don't really delete games. I just used to say that to scare the kids away from resetting their games without saving.
Oh, I thought, well, there must be something really wrong going on. We haven't gotten a new game.
What? There isn't a new game? What's the setback?
I'm not sure. I thought you'd have some info, seeing as you work in the network.
I just work on the internals. I don't know what's going on out there.
Where are the Animal Crossing developers? What have they been working on since the last Animal Crossing game? Well, the answer to this is pretty complicated. Often, we hear that the developers were moved to Splatoon for the Wii U. While many developers have gone off to work on games such as Splatoon and Splatoon 2, the organization of the development teams have undergone a lot of changes since 2015. Last week, I talked about the spin-off games and a bit about who developed them. If you haven't watched that video yet, check the description for a link to that video. Anyways, in that episode, I claimed that Happy Home Designer was the spin-off game made by the official Animal Crossing team. Since then, I've been researching a lot of the developers and finding out which games they've gone on to work on since Animal Crossing. In 2015, Nintendo had finished work on Happy Home Designer. This game was developed by the Nintendo Entertainment Development and Analysis Software Division, or the Nintendo EAD for short. The specific team behind Happy Home Designer was a subsidiary of that development group. They were called Software Development Group No. 2. Very clever name. There were a total of 7 development groups under the Nintendo EAD. The Nintendo EAD development group was incredibly large and often had many games under development at once. Even Software Development Group No. 2 was known to work on 2 games at once. In fact, while they were busy developing and releasing Happy Home Designer for the 3DS, the same team was also behind the development of Splatoon for the Wii U. Both games were released in 2015, just 2 months apart from each other. As you can see, Nintendo had access to a huge staff and had many resources to develop many games at once. In fact, the same group behind Happy Home Designer often released 2 to 3 games in a year. Many members from each group could be moved around to different games. After New Leaf was finished, many of the developers were moved to The Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds. It was very common for Nintendo to mix and match its teams to get really fresh ideas for each game. At the end of 2015, Nintendo restructured its development teams. Nintendo decided to merge its handheld and console divisions and formed an even bigger development group called Nintendo Entertainment Planning and Development, or the Nintendo EPD for short. This group had gone on to make a number of Wii U, 3DS, and even Switch titles. Some of the titles include Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey. Among some of the projects are some Animal Crossing releases. Amiibo Festival, Welcome Amiibo, and Pocket Camp are all listed under projects for the Nintendo EPD. However, we do know that Amiibo Festival and Pocket Camp were co-developed with ND Cube. ND Cube is a subsidiary company to Nintendo that has worked on a number of party games, such as Wii Party U, Mario Party 10, and Amiibo Festival. The Welcome Amiibo update is a good example of the merging of Nintendo's handheld and home console divisions. The team was a mix of many developers from each of these 2 groups. The end product was a fairly substantial update to the Animal Crossing New Leaf game. With everything I found about the Nintendo development teams, I started to wonder what exactly the Animal Crossing developers have been up to. This is also the part of the video that I've been a bit worried about because, well, I made spreadsheets. But don't click away. I promise this isn't just another business meeting. I promise to make the spreadsheet portion as short as possible, but it's necessary so I can explain the nice charts I made at the end of this video. Also, all of this info can be found on my website. Check the description for a link to the post after this video. I want to give you all a quick background of how I got this information. I started by watching the credits to Animal Crossing New Leaf, Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer, and Animal Crossing New Leaf Welcome Amiibo. I couldn't find credits for Amiibo Festival. It became clear to me that nobody really wanted their name associated to that game. Also, I couldn't find credits for Pocket Camp. Finally, on the spreadsheets, I left out the individuals credited for localization because I imagine those teams are working on many different games constantly. I also left out the studios who were credited and focused on the individuals. I took the credits and I looked up each developer on the Kyoto report. This site seems to keep a decent record of Nintendo employees. Unfortunately, I can't verify how accurate this information is, but I think it was trustworthy enough because the credits I wrote down closely match the credits for the games on their site. Finally, I have two spreadsheets. The first is of Animal Crossing New Leaf staff and the games those developers worked on after New Leaf. The second is of Happy Home Designer and the games those developers went on to create. Alright, that's all for the spreadsheet stuff. Let's get to the data. The first piece of information I found was that of the 112 developers I looked at for New Leaf. Of those 121, 81 were credited on games after New Leaf. That means 72.32% of New Leaf staff was moved to another game after Animal Crossing. Of these 81 developers, 8% worked on Pikmin 3, 2% worked on Animal Crossing Plaza, 5% worked on Super Mario 3D World, 13% worked on A Link Between Worlds, 10% worked on Mario Kart 8, 2% worked on Smash for Wii U and 3DS, 2% worked on Captain Toad, 10% worked on Splatoon, 26% worked on Happy Home Designer, 2% worked on Super Mario Maker, 1% worked on Amiibo Festival, 1% worked on Star Fox Zero, 2% worked on Welcome Amiibo, 5% worked on Breath of the Wild, 1% worked on ARMS, 8% worked on Splatoon 2, 2% worked on Super Mario Odyssey, and 2% worked on Pocket Camp. The most significant point of data was that 44 employees went on to work on Happy Home Designer. The Happy Home Designer staff consisted of about 90 people. Of these 90, only 26 were credited on games that released after Happy Home Designer. That's only 28.89% of the staff. Of the 26 developers who worked on the games, 2% worked on Amiibo Festival, 2% worked on Star Fox Zero, 21% worked on Welcome Amiibo, 21% on Breath of the Wild, 5% worked on ARMS, 29% worked on Splatoon 2, 5% worked on Super Mario Odyssey, 5% worked on Pocket Camp, and 10% worked on Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It is important to note that I couldn't find projects for 27.68% of the New Leaf staff. At the same time, I couldn't find information on projects beyond Happy Home Designer for 71.11% of the staff on that game. Are those 95 people still working on the Animal Crossing team? Are they still employees at Nintendo? It's impossible to tell, but that is a lot of people who have been left unaccounted for. While I can't confirm that these employees are working on the next Animal Crossing game, it is a possibility that some are, just as it is a possibility that some are not. The most important information I do know is that the directors of New Leaf, Happy Home Designer, and Welcome Amiibo haven't had any major roles beyond these games. Both Aya Kyogoku and Isao Moro could be hard at work on the next iteration of Animal Crossing. So there you have it. Nintendo has been mixing and matching a lot of teams, so it could be pretty close to impossible to tell who is working on what. What I do know is that there are a lot of employees at Nintendo, and I have a feeling that some of them must have some idea for the next Animal Crossing game. Thank you all for watching. Tune in every Friday for a new episode of Is It Time for Animal Crossing Switch? We'll take a look at a different aspect of Animal Crossing and why I think it's time for it to get announced. Don't forget to check out the description of this video where I've posted a link to my website where I've posted the script, spreadsheets, and charts that I've made for this video. If you want more Animal Crossing content, be sure to check out Haken, an Animal Crossing podcast, my podcast about all things Animal Crossing. New episodes come out every Tuesday. And if you haven't yet, watch last week's episode of Is It Time for Animal Crossing Switch? Continue this conversation on my Discord. You can find a link in the description below. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next Friday. Bye!